Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our work with triangles. We had last night quite a discussion on the science of being and the art of identification. So if you weren't there, that will be available on Makara. And from time to time, I don't yet have a regular schedule for it, but I suppose every couple of weeks or so, I'll hold one of those identify as being webinars. Last night was mostly just discussion and questioning, because that certainly is necessary, but along the way I'm sending you the work, the progress I'm making on refining the seed thoughts in this book, which is Seeds of the Infinite. And I think that there will be, for all of us, kind of a change of consciousness as a result. Now I'm substituting for Tuya, and probably will be for about another week, and then we'll see. She's up there at the Little Bear Meditation Center, and we'll see whether I can join her and whether she can take over these Ask presentations as heretofore. But now let's move ahead a little bit, and there are some readings here, little readings, this time from Telepathy and the Etheric Vehicle, and we have been concentrating on the avatar of synthesis, a great extraplanetary being, whether that being is intra-systemic, that has to be decided. In other words, is it a being that resides within our solar system, or is it an extra-systemic being? Whatever it is, it's a great deva of a kind, and our planetary logos has aligned with this being in order to bring about the movement towards synthesis planetarily and within humanity. So this is from Telepathy. It's a wonderful little book, and probably was a collection of those writings which Master DK gave to his very first seed group, which was composed of those who were more advanced in the work, Alice Bailey and Foster Bailey and Regina Keller and Roberto Assagioli, and some of those who were really very well established. They were able to make contact with the higher possibilities and bring them down for the others. Okay, so as the invocative system spreads and as a greater alignment is attained, Shambhala, the planetary head center, invokes energies outside the planetary life, and the inflow of cosmic and solar energies will be very much greater. So, cosmic and solar. All right. For this, the esotericists of the world must be prepared. It will also produce the advent or appearance of many avatars, bringing with them many and very different kinds of energies to those which hitherto have controlled human affairs, and the events and evolution of the other, the subhuman kingdoms and nature. So a great evolution is planned through the expediency of giving, the gifts of the Spirit. It used to be the title of a book that Dane Rudyard had written, and The idea is that when you are possessed of a particular quality and a high enough being, you look for a place to give it constructively. We're talking now, as we go along, about that triangle which is surrounding the Christ even now and will be through much of the Aquarian Age, the avatar of synthesis, the spirit of peace, and the Buddha. Okay, with the reappearance of the Christ as the focal point or the supreme agent of the planetary heart center, that is the hierarchy, a new era or divine epoch will be instituted. The avatar of synthesis will draw very close to humanity, and he will inaugurate the reign of avatars. This is a great first-ray being, and we're told that he works with the General Assembly of the United Nations, but not so much with the Security Council. He will inaugurate the reign of avatars who will be embodied purpose and spiritual will. They will initiate both the hierarchy and humanity into phases of the divine character, of which at present nothing is known, and for which we have no terminology which could convey the exact facts and nature. All that I am attempting to do here is to give you a general outline of events which may lie centuries ahead, but which will inevitably occur once the Christ is again in physical presence and recognition on earth. Notice he didn't say within a physical vehicle, because the Christ, of course, does have his own Maya Virupa. It's a question of when he makes that visible to humanity and when it is recognized. We're told pretty much that every eye shall see him. The question is, of course, will he be recognized? And elsewhere we're told he comes for his own, yet, of course, there will be a much greater recognition of who and what he is than had been possible 2,000 years ago in a very localized area of the Middle East. All that had to spread across the world, and it eventually did. Going on a bit here, as the okay. Today, however, now we're actually switching a little bit here to discussing the sixth initiation and the avatar of synthesis, and this is from the rays and the initiations. Today, however, in taking this sixth initiation, all of the masters so doing and under the suggestion of the Christ continue to make the decision, it's the great decision initiation, which will control their future progress on one of the 7 paths of the higher evolution. But now, as you may be familiar, we're given some information in the rays and initiations that there are now 9 paths to choose from, but nothing more is said. They will continue to make their decision, which will control their future progress on one of the paths, but at the same time, and this is really interesting given the crisis on our planet and what we are trying to help along with, all of them are postponing this proposed progress, upon one of the paths, upon their chosen path, in order, for a brief time, relatively, to implement and aid the work of the Christ and help towards the externalization of the hierarchy through the medium of certain of its ashrams, particularly at this time, the first ray, second ray, and fifth ray ashrams. They are very active in the externalization process, and eventually all of them will be. They will also form a protecting wall around the Christ and act as liaison officers between their great leader and the avatar of synthesis, who is obviously an initiate of a still higher degree. One more paragraph, I think, will do it for us this morning. And it's from Rays and Initiations, kind of a page 734. The avatar of synthesis, who is working in cooperation with the Christ, is one of these great avatars, I suppose it means. Bear in mind that these extraplanetary avatars, it makes it sound perhaps systemic. Let's see. Bear in mind that these extraplanetary avatars have not arrived at their high state of spiritual unfoldment on our planet, or even in our solar system. Their origin, source, and spiritual relationships are a great mystery, even to the planetary logoi, to whose help they go when the invocative appeal of any planet is adequate. So, it sounds like they are of very high origin. Could it be that in a former solar system they achieved their status, but maybe in a context which is even higher? In any case, they are helping the various planetary logoi when the time comes. And on our planet, that time has come. Okay, so the invocative appeal of any planetary logos has to be adequate to summon them. That's why it's so important that we really begin to understand the science of invocation. That's why we call this, of course, this kind of program, by the simple name ask. Ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be opened to you. It's all the science of invocation put together in a very simple word. Think not that these avatars, come to put wrong right or to arrest evil. A very few may do so, but they work along the line of the 7-ray energies in the solar system and produce certain effects desired at any particular time. Now remember that we have essentially a monadically first-ray planet here, which probably is correlating with the whole factor of synthesis, and we are a base of the spine, and the base of the spine is involved in that kind of synthesis that is achieved at the 5th initiation, which it is possible for our planetary logos to take, maybe even in this solar system. Okay, the constructive work of the avatar of synthesis will be apparent to you in the name he is known by. He is coming to the earth in order to further the manifestation of unity, of oneness, and of interrelation, and he comes therefore to wield and apply first-ray energy, even though he's working with two others, of course, making a triangle with the second-ray Spirit of Peace and the third-ray Buddha. He will charge or galvanize the three groups, the directing agents in Shambhala, the Nirmanakayas, and the new group of world servers with dynamic energy, again a threesome, and in a mysterious way relate them to each other so that a new synthesis and alignment will be present upon the earth. All these avatars embody energy to the extent that any particular planet is capable of receiving it. Of course, this supplies as well to ourselves. We get what we can take, and if we cannot stand the higher energies or withstand them, then the donors of those energies will be wise enough not to give them. I'm recalling a time when Master DK writes of it, when he and Master KH were discussing a certain disciple, FCD, and they were discussing, do they widen the channel into his energy system? And they decided not to, because he was already so extremely sensitive that any widening of the channel, though giving fresh access to energy, might just overdo it and set him back. So the measurement of energy and its gift to lesser beings has to be really exquisitely accurate, and in the case of Shambhala, it is so. It's sometimes called, along the first ray line, the power that touches and withdraws. So we have triangles here surrounding the Christ and working at the behest of the Lord of the world, and we have the directors of Shambhala and the Nirmanakayas and the directors of hierarchy, the great lights of Shambhala, the registrants of the purpose, the Nirmanakayas, and the custodians of the will, the higher masters within hierarchy, always triangles to balance the energies. Okay, well, I think that is probably enough there. And let's work in the customary manner, breathing in the white light, this white light is so often used to cleanse the energy system, cleanse the aura. There are different colors that one can breathe in, and usually they involve either the purifying white or the energizing golden, yellow, orange, which we will be using here. DK wants us to wake up in the morning and whether in a chair or in bed, to link up with him. And there's going to be a triangle of light with the base triangle, the base of the triangle on the higher mental plane, and there the influence of the Master and the Solar Angel will be felt, and the apex will be inverted. We're familiar with the idea. We hold it firmly in our consciousness. Through the power of the creative imagination, there's an image of the golden, yellow, orange, of this solid triangle. And we see that from the perspective of the individual, the Master DK would be on the left, the Solar Angel or Angel of the Presence on the right, and the energy would pour down into the aura. And we would bathe in that energy as if we were to bathe in the waters of the sea, but essentially trust Master DK to do with it what he will. We're not in a position to know. So for just a moment, let's do that, receive that energy. And let it permeate the personality. Let the imagination see this, and especially we're trying to work with the etheric body, so the etheric physical is one of the special targets of this energy. Then we have another perspective on the threefold nature of the triangle hovering above the square. The personality is that square, and sometimes the souls are called triangles. Also, five-pointed stars of consciousness. It's sometimes the monad that is in astrology, the monad spirit, is seen as the triangle, drawn in blue, and the five-pointed star in yellow for the factor of consciousness and soul, and then the black square, material square, for personality. And our objective, as we know, is to bring the triangle into the square. And we recognize that the Masons have done this with their Masonic apron. They sometimes appear in parades and so forth, and they wear these aprons, and you'll see the triangle inverted and penetrating the square. That's the esoteric meaning of it all. Now this mantram of the will, let's listen to it and give acquiescence to it. Because eventually there will be these triangles of the will to good, not yet, but there will be. Right now the triangles are of goodwill, love, and of light. But one day the will to good will pour through a clarified and energized triangles network. And so this mantram of will, to which we acquiesce when it comes to the divine will, is not much more one can do. One can be willing to acquiesce. In the center of the will of God I stand. Naught shall deflect my will from His. I implement that will by love. I turn towards the field of service. I, the triangle divine, work out that will within the square and serve my fellow men. And of course the field of service is the square. And our task, as Master DK was taught long ago, is to bisect the square into two triangles. So we think about our own triangular triangles and about the network, but especially about our own little group, whether it's one or more triangles, and we work for a little while with that. Seeing love, goodwill, light pass through the various triangles. I know there's not a lot of time in this method, but when you do it by yourself, you will have adequate time to attend to each of your triangles. You visualize the members of each triangle you have, and in a little while we'll apply the great invocation to that. So for a few minutes, these your own triangles. You can imagine that when people have quite a few triangles, they have to work out a method to do those every day, and it can take, quite a while, but it is according to the strength of feeling and the strength of the will. It is strengthening the network, and that's what we have to do, because he said it is a work that must go on, and the triangles network will always be growing, and with the inner eye we will begin to see the illumination of the network. When the eye is opened, all is illumined. It's a kind of a Taurus mantram. We will understand the substratum of the soul beneath events, especially at first etheric events, then astral, and then mental. So light is brought into the square-like etheric field, and we're all linked up. Within Shambhala, a great triangle of entities that were so high that they were actually planetary loci in the previous solar system, and they work along the intelligence aspect. They are the Buddhas of activity. And they're under some sacrificial aspect, and they are assisting Sanat Kumara. So should there ever be a true planetary emergency, we don't know what they would do, but they are capable of interacting with the Triangle's network and using it, I suppose, to bring through the energies of the soul at a time when humanity is in danger. Shambhala impacts are rare, and the interventions of the Buddha, we don't know. Buddhas, we don't know how many. But all of this is supervised because we're on a planet which is the base of the spine center of our solar logos, and it will not do to have the destruction of one of the major chakras that rules one of the initiations that lies immediately ahead for our planetary logos, possibly or solar logos in this solar system. So our work then is to expand outward from our own little network into the planetary network of triangles rapidly forming, and it is a work that must go on. The Tibetan doesn't waste words, so when he says it must go on, we take him at his word. And the three Buddhas with, in a way, Sanat Kumara, the Lord of the world, at the very center. So when we work with a great invocation. And we'll do that now. And pass the beneficent energy from point to point, from point to point. It's all done in the key of C. It's the red note in music so often, and whether it belongs to the first ray or the sixth ray, well, that is debated. So, a global network of triangles will cover the entire planet. It's a work which must go on, and we will develop this during the Aquarian Age, which is basically an etheric age, along with Gemini, the two constellations which really affect the etheric body. And the ether substands all the events so that when things are there organized and the chaos is reduced and the distortion is reduced and the separatism is reduced, then we'll see a much happier outer life demonstration. And the story goes that if there were 100,000 active, well-functioning triangles, that the whole world's situation could be turned around. This is something that, it's a piece of kind of information that you hear, rumor, occult rumor has it, but anyway, that Alice Bailey conveyed this idea to one of her workers at headquarters, and maybe it came from the Tibetan, we don't know. So we want to see our planet redeemed, the redemption of the kingdoms, the interplay of the kingdoms, the emergence of the kingdom of the soul, and seeing the redemption at least of the human personality, and I suppose of the planetary personality, because our planetary logos is working with that. We think of that redemption as we sound the Om 3 times. The work is simple, but it is deep, and let's get used to thinking in terms of triangles rather than squares, and one day, like the etheric body of the sun, we will be working on circles or spheres. Those are the 3 types of figures which configure the etheric body: squares, triangles, and circles or spheres. So we thank you for your participation and are grateful for your meditative presence. It doesn't take, maybe a lot of students, a lot of people to be effective, but they have to be deep in what they're doing. They have to express depth and sincerity and understanding and continuity. And then we'll be in a position to assure that this work can go on, and it will certainly help with the reappearance of the Christ. So let's hear the great invocation that is specifically dedicated to the idea of goodwill. That's the first invocation written, I think, 1935, 1936. So we want to thank you for being here. And tonight, Wednesday is our sort of our double day. And we will have maybe some of the deeper aspects of the science of triangles tonight at 5 o'clock p.m. GMT. And that ought to be a reasonable time in the United States and in South America. It's probably pretty early in Australia and New Zealand, but we'll be at work there. And these programs are available to you. So we continue to invoke, work behind the scenes, and work esoterically in meditation with full confidence that we are accomplishing something of value for the divine plan. Many blessings to everyone.